After the unexpected death of his predecessor, retired diplomat Mark Grossman is due to take over as the U.S. envoy to Afghanistan and Pakistan. At least one analyst described it as the worst job in the world. Scott Ryder has more.
Back blast, area clear!
It's been over 9 years since the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan. Hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent and more than 1,000 U.S. servicemen have lost their lives. But the complete impact on Afghanistan is not yet known. President Hamid Karzai has been facing increasing criticism from Western nations over how he's running the country. Corruption and cronyism are still pervasive.
There needs to be much better governance within Afghanistan. There needs to be far more accountability.
On the military front, a counterinsurgency strategy has sent tens of thousands more troops to southern Afghanistan. But that has so far failed to stop major attacks. And it's looking increasingly likely that President Barack Obama won't be pulling troops out as early as he had planned. There's also concern over continuing violence and the preparedness of the Afghan security forces when they inherit the lead role in 2014. Over the next several months, the U.S. face in the region will go through some major changes. The vacancy left by the death of Special Envoy Richard Holbrooke is to be filled by retired diplomat Mark Grossman. The ambassador in Kabul, Carl Eichenberry, is coming to the end of his term, and the coalition commander, General David Petraeus, is slated to leave at the end of the year. Beyond the serious challenges on the ground in the region, Secretary Clinton and the Obama administration need to be concerned with American public perception. A recent Gallup poll shows that 82% of Americans view Afghanistan unfavorably and 76% view Pakistan unfavorably. That's mainly because this war has dragged on now nearly 10 years. But there still needs to be progress on and off the battlefield for the American public to support a continued military presence in Afghanistan.
So we need to recognize that that support is a dwindling resource. And so Secretary Clinton and others are going to need to make the case that the maintenance of high levels of resource allocations, whether people or money or anything else, in Afghanistan is going to bear fruit.
And looking east, Pakistan's cooperation remains critical for coalition operations in Afghanistan. Even before U.S. troops arrived to the region, officials in Pakistan were dealing with their own difficulties, including a growing insurgency, corruption, political instability, and a struggling economy. Such problems have made it even less likely for Pakistani officials to exert the type of effort needed to secure a border that would be hard enough to secure under normal circumstances. Scott Heidler, AlJazeera, New York.
All right, let's take you back now to Uganda, where polls are about to close in presidential and parliamentary elections. Mohammed Ado is covering that election for us, joins us now live from the Ugandan capital, Kampala. Mohammed, how has the voting gone so far?
Well, it's gone well in most places, but in eastern Uganda, fully, there's been clashes between two opposing candidates in one of the parliamentary constituencies. The Minister for Defense, Beatrice Wabudaya, supporters and the supporters of her opponent clashed in and around the town of Mbale in eastern Uganda, close to the Kenya-Uganda border, and 2 people are confirmed dead and up to 30 others injured. The injured include a journalist who is said to have been shot by security officials and is now in hospital, and so are the other 29 other injured people. Beatrice Wabudaya had shifted from her original constituency to this particular constituency of this particular politician who had been given the government a lot of problems in parliament, and she is said to have had the blessings of President Museveni to shift and ensure that this particular politician lost his seat. Now there have been clashes between the supporters of both candidates, and the military has been deployed to eastern Uganda to quell the situation. So
the situation volatile then, Mohammed. Kizza Besigye, the opposition leader who was Museveni's physician, had in fact promised Egypt-style protests if the vote was to be rigged. Do you get the sense as that there's a high risk for violence in the wake of this election?
Well, many people we've been talking to do not believe that Kizza Besigye has the gravitas to bring people out in the streets. However, one thing that he has said is that he is going to tally his own votes and make an announcement. And the government has said they will crack down on him and his supporters and ensure that he is arrested. And this could spark protests and violence. Now, that is the big fear. However, there isn't much fear here in Uganda that Kizza Besigye much support that they can bring people out to the streets. At the moment, the big battle is between Kizza Besigye and President Museveni, although there are many other opposition candidates, and they say they want to scatter the votes for President Museveni. They want to take all the votes from their particular regions and tribes to ensure that President Museveni does not get an outright win. And then they say in a runoff election, they're going to sponsor one candidate against him. Whether this ploy would work or not, it's hard to tell at the moment.
OK, thank you very much, Mohamed Ado, reporting there live from the Ugandan capital, Kampala. In other news, the Japanese whaling fleet is heading home after its annual whale hunt was cut short by almost a month. The government says it's because of harassment by the anti-whaling group Sea Shepherd. Veronica Pedrosa has the details.
With light beams and smoke canisters, Japan's whaling season comes to an abrupt halt. And now it's official.
For the safety of our fleet, we regret that we have to end the whale hunting survey.
The whaling boats had already suspended the hunt, turned around and headed home after being hounded by a hard-line anti-whaling group. Boats from the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society had been chasing the leading ship, throwing flares and stink bombs.
It's regretful that these disruptive activities took place. So from our point of view, we would like to make sure such things don't happen in the future.
The Japanese boats are allowed to hunt for what they say are scientific purposes. But critics point out the whale meat not used for study is sold for people to eat in Japan. So they say the real reason is profit.
The key here is an economic one. We have to sink the Japanese whaling fleet economically. We have to bankrupt them. And after 6 years, that's exactly what's happening. We come down here every year stronger. They come down here every year weaker. And we're going to drive them out of the sanctuary.
Japan's decision to end the whaling season early's already been welcomed by another government.
In the view of the Australian government, it's not time to celebrate until we get a decision from Japan that they are stopping whaling for good.
And there's a potentially greater threat to the whalers. They're subsidised by the Japanese government, but they've only killed about 1/5 of their quota. Having ended the season early, they reportedly stand to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Veronica Pedrosa, AlJazeera.
A Beijing court has upheld the conviction and 8-year sentence given to a Chinese-born American geologist for stealing state secrets. Jiu Feng was charged in July for obtaining information on the Chinese oil industry. His appeal lawyer argued that the information about the oil industry was widely available. The U.S. ambassador to China was in court and urged Beijing to release Xu. The two candidates taking part in Haiti's presidential runoff have launched their campaigns a month before the March 20th vote. The singer Michel Martelly's rally in Cap Haitien attracted thousands of supporters. The other candidate is Myrlande Manigat, a law professor and former First Lady. The winner of the election will oversee Haiti's reconstruction efforts after an earthquake almost leveled the capital 1 year ago. While the death toll from Haiti's cholera epidemic, meanwhile, is